So thank you so much again for taking the time to do this interview with us today. Um, okay, so let's start. I'd like to start from your bio because I found it extremely nice. I quote, "I am an entrepreneur, educator, and design strategist with a twisted love for numbers." So if you can tell us in like 5 minutes something about you, who is Maaike Doyer, and what's your background, more or less?
Yeah, and my twisted love for numbers, right? It's really,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
really is a thing. As a child, math was my favorite subject in school, and I know not many people have that. So I actually studied math as well, econometrics to be precise. And from there, I moved over to an accountancy firm. You know, who would think that? Because of course, I had a couple of options back then. I mean, right now, I think there are way cooler jobs out there, but at that moment what I saw is like I knew I did not want to be stuck in an office behind a laptop doing smart things. I really wanted to interact more with other people. And therefore I thought an accountancy firm is fun because you have your clients that you interact with. And that's how I ended up there. Which indeed it was an amazing time. I did a lot of M&A, mergers and acquisitions in there. I supported a lot of companies with their strategy, and eventually I was like, I'm doing all these things and I'm writing all these beautiful plans, but nothing is changing, right? Like, how can I do this in a different way? And that's when Business Models Inc. came in my life, because the founder of Business Models Inc. has been my colleague already, literally since day one at work at the accountancy firm. So we've been together for a very long time. And he was like, "Hey, Mike, I want you to join the team." We didn't even have an office yet at that moment. There was nothing yet. But there was the book, of course, the Business Model Generation book with the business model canvas in there, and that was produced by Business Models Inc. And so we're like, yes, let's work on this alternative. Let's stop writing business plans and let's really do it different. And from there, that was about 10 years ago now. My whole life basically completely changed, where I got from more a number person, which I still am, into more innovative and creative and applying all those thoughts in a more creative way. So that's been a lot of fun. I became the global CFO as well for the company, worked on the global strategy. 5 years ago, I moved to San Francisco because I was based in Amsterdam. I moved to San Francisco 5 years ago to start our company in the United States and to expand it further there. And just recently, it's December now, in September, I moved to Singapore. So complete different side of the world again. So I'm super excited to be here in basically it's a next chapter for me here in Singapore. So I'm excited what that will bring.
That's amazing. I saw that you moved to Singapore to learn more from the Asian culture. Is that correct?
Correct, because I mean I'm born in Europe, so seen a lot of the European culture. Been in the US for 5 years, and it's so cool to be there. And because you read about it, you hear about the culture in the United States, but you only get it when you really live there and live there longer than a couple of months. So it really enriches a person, I think, to live in a different culture.
Oh
And
yeah.
the Asian culture, again, is so different from what we see in Europe, what we see in the United States. So I was like, yeah, I wanna learn more. How does it work? How does the world work on this side? Yes.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I want to do, by the way. But I was thinking more about China or Japan. I don't know.
I think Singapore is sort of it's sort of Asia for beginners. It's a nice way in because the official language is English, so that makes it
Yeah.
super easy. It's amazing how everything is organized here. It's so structured, so it's a relaxed landing. But indeed, going to China would definitely be an all other level. I would love to, but I think this is a nice first step into the Asian culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'll take that into consideration then. Um, so can you tell us a bit what you do exactly in Business Models Inc.
So Business Models Inc., we're a global innovation and strategy organization. And we help startups and large corporates, mainly the large corporates, to to innovate like a startup? How can we help them to really do things in a different way, not to spend time inside working on business plans, but actually interact with customers, coming up with new things and implement them right away? And that's in a nutshell that I've been doing. I mean, with my move to Singapore, I actually stepped out as being the global CFO of the company, and I'm now the BMI Special Forces Unit, as we say. So I'm still involved, but I also wanted to have a little bit more time myself, since I'm working in innovation for 10 years means I have too many ideas now myself. So it's time to bring them, at least test them, try them out. So I'm working on a couple of startups myself as well. So I'm still doing Business Models Inc., the Special Forces. I love my education. So I'm increasing actually my teaching and my professorship to universities. And I'm exploring some startup concepts right now.
Wow. that's amazing. Whenever you were like right now, you have plenty of ideas for startups, and I guess your experience will guide you through probably the best path to create your own startup. But at the beginning, whenever it was the first time for you, if you have to think about, I don't know, the three biggest challenges, what would they be?
I think because indeed you see exactly as different phases have different challenges. If you look at my challenge at this moment is how to make a choice, because I'm actually working on too many things, like rabbit hole after rabbit hole, basically, that I'm diving into, which is okay. I'm allowing myself that time at this moment. But if you really already have an idea, this is the concept that I want to work on, avoid everything else, right? Really make sure you stay focused and you go for it. But also looking at, for example, 5 years ago, when I moved from the Netherlands to the United States, we had the company, we had Business Models Inc. The value proposition was there, it was proven, it was successful. So I thought, okay, I move over to San Francisco and I'll just continue what I've been doing. Well, that was completely wrong, right? That was really, because you plant your flag, but then no one knocks on your door because no one knows you're there, especially not in this large country like the United States is. And so that was really a challenge, especially in the beginning. I mean, the first thing that we did was I found a business partner there, Justin, who was a local. And he didn't know Business Models Inc. yet to that extent, but he had, of course, a design thinking mindset. And he had his network, and I knew, okay, this is how we can run the company. So together, we really managed to bring it alive. On my own, I would have never managed, and I would dare to say the reverse as well. He would also never have managed without me. I think that was really the combination, finding that business partner to do it with, because it helps you in those low moments. I remember that we were sometimes just sitting in our office looking at each other like, uh-oh, what are we doing in the beginning, right? You're just sort of like, there's nothing happening. There's not enough projects coming in. How are we going to succeed? And if you have to do that on your own, it's impossible. It's so hard to motivate yourself. Entrepreneurship is hard, and there are a lot of downs in the process. There can be amazing ups, and eventually it all went up. But those downs, if you have a business partner or co-founder, that's really something that you need to treasure and look for even.
So the people that you decide to run this idea with, it's the most important thing to take into consideration, isn't it? Is it even more important than the idea itself?
I would almost say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I heard too. Like, it's crazy.
it's because it is indeed, you need the motivation, you need to do it together. You need to have the right team around you, and not just your co-founder, your business partner, but also just in general, the team around you is what makes it. And that's also what you see as, because I'm also now exploring more being an investor and an angel investor as well. And that's the first thing that I do if I look for investments into other startups. So like, okay, who's the team? And do they have the drive, and will they have dedication in terms of, that it doesn't go that well as you expect? Will they continue? Will they really push themselves to keep on going? And that indeed is almost more important then, because the actual idea itself, it will change. I mean, I notice it myself now as well, that the things that I'm working on, it starts with one point, and then you start to run a couple of tests, and you start to interact with potential customers. And all of a sudden, you see that you're going into different directions than you thought because there's so many unknowns. And that's okay, because as long as you're with a good team, you can follow through.
Yeah. What do you think are the main, let's say, attributes of that you have to look for in another person in order to be like the great partner to start a startup with?
That's a good question, because it's always easy to connect with a person that's like yourself, but that's also dangerous because that other person does not necessarily have a huge other skill set than you. So there's that balance, and there has to be some overlap, at least in values, like what do you think is important? But in skill sets, you have to be completely different, and you really need to be a team in that. And that balance is hard to find, because you tend to go to people who are more like yourself. But eventually, it's better to have a more diverse team, so that you can look at it from all the different perspectives, but not so diverse that you clash all the time, because that's not going to be very constructive.
Yeah. All right. That's pretty interesting. Another thing that I wanted to ask you is, I read that you are design strategist, so an expert of design thinking, right? So how is design thinking shaping your projects, your initiatives, your company, your future startups?
Completely, everything. It's so in my DNA right now, in my way of doing things. Even my personal life is affected by it, honestly. It drives my husband crazy every now and then. There's like, oh, there she is with her post-its again. Like, I even apply that for just personal questions and challenges that we have. Because for me, what really is design thinking for me, it's looking at it from all the different perspectives and thinking in options. There are always options. And that's that. Just, yeah, for me it's just my normal, because I've been doing this for more than 10 years now, so that automatically becomes your thing. But I'm always looking like, okay, this is an option, good, let's write it down, let's fix it, and then what is another option? And it really helps me to structure my thinking, to be like, okay, I like this option best because of all these reasons, good, let's actually validate this, let's build a quick prototype and see what happens. Oh, that didn't go well. Okay, good, right? Back to the drawing board, or let's move over to my other option. That's okay. It allows you a lot of flexibility, and also curiosity. I think curiosity is another big thing within design thinking. You have to be super curious. It's basically shaping everything, I would say.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, I asked this question, but I know what design thinking is because I studied it last year. But if you have to explain what design thinking is in just like a sentence or two to someone that never heard about that.
It's hard, because just like design thinking, it's about options. There is not a single right definition either about design thinking. But for me, it's about creative problem solving, starting with the perspective from a customer instead of the producer, someone who wants to make a product, but starting with the customer's perspective. You're solving a problem, you're not selling in a solution. That's a big differentiator. And you're looking at it multiple perspectives. So you're looking at multiple options. And it's always about a co-creative, iterative process. So it's typically something you do with other people, and it's iterative, because you take a step, you learn from it, and you adjust your thinking, and then you do another test where you learn and you adjust again. So it's a very iterative process. Something like that in just 2 minutes.
I think it was pretty clear. Yeah, many people are not able to give a definition of design thinking, by the way. So
it's hard.
yeah. Yours was pretty good. So I asked you about your biggest challenge. What do you think is your biggest lesson learned?
My biggest learnings, I think, just in general, like, don't overthink. I mean, I studied math, so I mean, I love sitting behind my laptop, doing all types of Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. But when I'm doing the numbers for my ideas, or when I'm doing that together with some of my customers or with the students, I always say throw away Excel, because the minute you open Excel, you start to go in way too many details. And it's about like you need to grasp the concept first, do it high level, and then test it before you go into all the details. You can do the details later, not in the beginning. So no analysis paralysis, but really try to figure out for yourself, okay, what really matters here, spend max 1 hour on it, and then start to do something. Put up a webinar, put up a website, speak with 10 people on the street about your idea. It doesn't matter, right? But have that interaction immediately, even if it's just a small light bulb, like, oh, what if I do something here? Just test it right away.
All right. So keep it simple and take action.
Do something. Yes.
Do
It doesn't matter what you do. So don't overthink it. Just do it. And you're like, oh, that didn't go well. Okay, good. What's the next thing that I can do?
Yeah. So I see also the principle of the lean startup method here. So
Completely.
iterating and iterating again and changing, getting feedback from people, changing it again.
Every week, right? That's the core thing. Every week, speak with people, do a little test, and it can just be as simple as, I mean, I've done it for my startups that I'm working on right now. Just in a Facebook group, throw a bit of a question, or on LinkedIn, throw a question and see what the responses are. That already gives you so much information. That's a very quick and dirty test. It's better to have some live interaction, but it already immediately helps you, and you learn something right away.
All right. By the way, I guess right now you're involved in, and you were involved in many different projects. Um, do you have a favorite one?
Do I have a favorite project? It really depends on the moment and what makes a project one of my favorite projects at that moment is the team that I'm working with. So it's the company, because I remember one of my favorite projects has been a company in Mexico, Metalsa. They're doing big chassis for trucks, which as such, it's not a sexy product or anything, right? So in general, you're like, hey, how can this be? But the team that I was working with is so amazing. They're so driven. They're so smart. Many young people actually on the team. That's what I like. They're between 20 and 25 that were really doing it and making such amazing progress in such a short time. And that for me is so rewarding to actually see the impact happening. That those kind of things make it a favorite project for me. It's really the people that I work with.
Hmm. Once again, the people really make the difference. Yeah.
It does. Yeah, that's what's such a bummer. Like all the working from home right now. I mean, we do, of course, these interactions with Zoom. But luckily, that's the good part about Singapore. And next week, my first live class again since March. And so it's always so much better and nicer to interact with people instead of trying to do that in a digital mode.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, by the way, we know that you have just released a book, which
Yes.
is called Business Model Shifts: 6 Ways to Create New Value for Customers. Would you like to tell us something about it?
Yes, buy
Yes.
it and leave a review on Amazon. No, but besides that, it's also look on our website, businessmodelsinc.com. You will find many blog posts about it as well. Every week, a new blog post is released. We have many examples there, so that's all free content. Especially if you're a student, that's always the best thing to get. Yeah, but there's a lot of valuable content in there, because what we see is we studied a couple of hundred different business models across companies and seeing like, okay, what are the trends that we can see in there? And we saw 6 different trends. For example, you see the shift that people are going from products to services. Or people are going from just shareholder value to stakeholder value. Like, how can I can have more value for everyone and not just for the shareholder? Or we go from a pipeline business model to a platform business model. And so those are all the type of trends that we noticed. So we started to analyze these trends and really brought them together and like, hey, if this is the trend, what does this look like in the business model canvas? And if you as an organization see like, I actually only do products, how could I shift to a service business model? the book actually has some great tips for you to take so that you can look at how can I transform my organization? How can I shift my organization from a product organization to a service organization? So that will give a lot of inspiration to take those first steps and to design some new business model options that could work for you as an organization.
That's amazing, really. I know that one of our team members of the club already bought your book, so we're definitely
Nice.
going to ask him what he thinks about it. And
Yeah, what it is, and it's a lot of inspiration. As I said, every week we launch new cases because we just launched the book. So of course, there's going to be a lot of content we already prepared, and that's now one by one all going to be released. And so follow that on the website or on the LinkedIn, and you will find a lot of information about those shifts, about those examples, and what you can learn about that.
All right. All right, I'm done with the questions. Is there something else that you'd like to add? I don't know, something that maybe inspired you particularly during your career path, or whatever, something else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think it's about stay curious. And that's the most important part as an entrepreneur. Be curious. Don't take the obvious for granted. Ask a lot of stupid questions because sometimes things seem obvious, but when you ask a stupid question behind it, it turns out that it's based on a sort of outdated thinking, outdated perspective. And by asking those stupid questions, you can gain so many new insights and then hopefully come up with new concepts and new startups.
I'm gonna write it down. This thing I'm gonna write it down for sure. I feel that I want to take notes, so sometimes I'm like tempted to just take a pen and write it down. No, I'm gonna have the recording of this interview. I'm gonna take notes later.
Recording, exactly. Always happy to do this. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.